Schneider. Rob is an award-winning director, producer, author, educator, and podcast host, residing in New York City, where he's the artistic director of the J2 Spotlight Musical Theater Company, an initiative dedicated to reviving important works of American musical theater. Schneider is also the founder of the American Musical Theater Archive, which we're all here to hear about today, a 501c3 that will support the creation of an online repository for scholars, academics, and theater lovers who wish to study the artistic creations of notable figures in musical theater who are unable to travel to conduct research or unable to easily access materials. So we're all eager to hear about this initiative.
Great. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Rob. It's such a pleasure. I have to just hit okay that I'm okay that it's recording. Okay, good. Now I'm all good. I cannot tell you how honored I am to be here today. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we've created and what we're trying to accomplish. And then please, if you have any questions, I would love to hear about it. So for us, oh, and please forgive me if any of this is stuff that you already know, and you can just wave your hand and I'll shut up and move on to another topic. One of the things that's really been plaguing a lot of young collegiate students, especially graduate and undergraduate students that are wanting to study musical theater, is that with only in the past 15 years or so at most has musical theater been looked at in an academic setting as an appropriate form of research and scholarship. It took a long time for theater to be given sort of the permission and validation by academia to be studied as something worthwhile. And musical theater has always been looked at in the world of theater as something less than, probably because it has its roots in sort of a commercialism. And only recently has musical theater been looked at as something as a legitimate form of scholarship and a legitimate form of research. The problem is that for a lot of students, either there isn't a lot of scholarly information out there that's available to them, or on top of that, whatever is available to them quite often is them just simply doing a Google search, and any sort of research or websites that are dedicated to the history of musical theater have been created by people that are very passionate about musical theater, but they're not always necessarily historically accurate. So a lot of times students will then put out information that's either incorrect or can be it can be, if it's a thesis of some sort, a lot of times the holes can be poked into the thesis quite easily. So myself and a group of other educators decided to create a hub, which is called the American Musical Theater Archive. And like we were saying, it's a 501c3, so all of our donations are tax deductible. And the goal of this is twofold. The first goal of it is to create a central repository where students, researchers, and just anyone who's interested in the world of musical theater can come to the website, they can come take a look around, but they can also find out, for example, that if they wanted to study the works of like a great choreographer like Jerome Robbins, who did West Side Story, or somebody like Bob Fosse, who did movies like Cabaret, or who did the musical Chicago, that they can find out where exactly his papers are located, how to access those papers, and if they need any sort of copies or transfers made, is it something that where they they contact the library directly, or is it something where we might be able to provide them with some sort of financial aid or scholarship to go to these places and do research on their own? One of the things that's always really hard for us in the performing arts is because the unions are very protective of the members that create a live theatrical event. The idea of having the work out there, usually like in a video recorded format or in an audio format, usually is something that the unions try not to validate because they don't want anybody making money off of performers or artists. And so now unions are sort of now moving into this grayer area where things are now actually going to be looked at as for scholarly purposes. So because of that, like if, for example, New York City has the great Library for the Performing Arts located in New York, which is run by the wonderful Doug Reside. If you ever get to meet Doug, I think he might have spoken to you at some point, or I know some people in this organization know Doug. A lot of wonderful things are available for the public, but you have to come to the library itself to look at that material. So one of the things that we're trying to do is take take some of that material and put them into an online setting so you don't have to pay your travel and hotel to get to New York City to try to research the material that you want to research. So one of our goals also is, for example, is having a group of employees who work for the archive that could go down and scan and copy if those things need to be made available. If it is something where the library is saying, no, unfortunately, the person has to be live and in person to view whatever this material is, like I said, our hope is to create a travel or scholarship fund so young students have the ability to do so. Unlike literature, unlike cinema, unlike the visual arts, live performance is something that needs to be experienced in the moment, and so that's always going to be the hurdle that we have as archivists, as historians, which is getting that accessible to people all over across the country. For example, if it comes to a movie like Citizen Kane, we can all stream Citizen Kane or go to a revival house and watch it, but a live performance is something a little different, and that's kind of the nut that we're trying to crack over here, over in our particular world. Any questions about anything so far? Like I said, I'm very excited about what we're trying to accomplish because it's taken a long time for this beautiful art form, which was really created over here in the United States, and it's probably one of the purest forms of indigenous American entertainment. And so we want to make sure that it gets preserved and gets celebrated. So I get very passionate about it. So if I talk too fast or if I say something that's unclear, just please stop me and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. But our two main goals right now is one, creating a website that becomes a central repository. And that would not only include where can we get some of this information from people, like finding out where those direct points of contact are, but also making sure that the website then actually has some of this material available to them. And I should say everything for the student would be free. There is no entry fee to get onto the website. We do take donations, but we would never tell a student or a researcher, hey, you have to pay us a certain amount of money in order to get this material. Our goal is to hopefully raise funds independently. And then if we do have to pay individuals, it comes from that fund. So that way the researcher or the student never has to lay out a cent of their own money. We just think that's unfair and against what we're trying to accomplish. And then the other big step that we have is a lot of wonderful stuff is in private collections, but needs digitization. There's a lot of wonderful records. There's a lot of wonderful reel-to-reel audio cassettes. There's a lot of wonderful VHS that's out there. But unfortunately, for a lot of people that have this in their personal collections, they don't have the money to have it digitally transferred, which means we really are in a race against the clock. So we have two really wonderful individuals. There's a wonderful gentleman named Miles Kruger who lives out in Los Angeles. He runs the Institute of the American Musical Theater, and he has live 8 millimeter footage of musical performances all the way back to 1935 with somebody like Ethel Merman and Anything Goes. And unfortunately, that's on its way of disintegrating. So we're trying to get all of Miles's stuff digitized. Over here in New York, we have a wonderful gentleman by the name of Ken Bloom. Ken is a great individual who is able to get many recordings, either personal recordings, private recordings of wonderful composers, people like George and Ira Gershwin, people like Cole Porter, and their stuff, which is on either vinyl or on reel to reel, also with the fear of disintegration. So we're kind of in a race against the clock to get all of that stuff digitized. So that's what we do. That's who we are. We only started about a year or so ago. And like I said, our main priority now is getting as much of this stuff digitized as possible before it just sort of disappears into the ether. And then at that point, nobody gets to enjoy it, which is not the best for us. So that's our little spiel. Are there any questions about anything? I'm looking to see if any hands are going up or anything like that, just to make sure. Oh, I see Amanda's hand is going up. Hi, Amanda. What's going on?
Hi, Robert. This is so cool. I work with Megan. This is really amazing. I just had a couple questions about the website. I know it's early days.
Yes.
Um, do you guys plan on having it? How is it going to be organized? Like, is it going to be by institution, collection, keyword searchable?
It will be keyword searchable. So the goal is that, for example, if you type in the name George Gershwin, anything that we have on the website or the repository that relates to George Gershwin would come up for you in a search. That would be something along the lines of, "Hey, this is where his archives are kept. Hey, this is the lawyer who represents his estate." If you have a more direct question, "Hey, this is all of the scripts and scores in PDF and electronic format." So we're really trying to do it by a keyword search. Now, I will be honest with everybody here. Because this is something that's very new to me, if anyone feels like, oh, actually, keyword searches don't work, this works better, all ears, and very excited to hear about any other sort of ideas or ways of executing this and getting the information out to the public. So as honored as I am to be here today to speak, I'm also very interested to hear, because you're all the experts in these fields, if there's another way of doing it that might be more impactful for our students. Great question, Amanda. Thank you for asking. Anybody else? Anybody else? I'm looking through, and I'm curious actually, for all the people that are on here, has anyone else worked with any sort of entertainment archive or any sort of entertainment classification, whether it's the visual arts, whether it's literature, whether it's cinema? I'm just curious if anybody else is sort of in the same boat. And if you are, please feel free to click off your microphone and say, "I'm just genuinely curious." I'm not seeing anybody yet, which is good. So if I can, for all of you, what are you finding are the best ways in terms of getting material out there to a younger generation? And I'm curious, is anybody using any sort of social media to gear people towards your site? I'm seeing Kylie over here. Oh, wonderful. Kylie, you're part of the La Mama Experimental Theater Archive. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine the collection that you have over there. Kylie, how's it going for you over there? And do you have a lot of individuals that are coming to do research? And if so, are they part of like a collegiate or graduate level, or are they just people that are really interested in theaters? Oh, I see Louise here is on the BAM archives. Amazing. Great. Yeah, so Kylie, if I can pitch it to you, do you mind answering my question if that's okay?
No, I don't mind at all. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Thanks.
Great. So we do probably 50 to 80 student tours a year. So we have a lot of student groups that come through. We also have our digital archives. So our digital collections, we really push to the students because that way, I always like to point out that it means that when you're writing a term paper at 3 o'clock in the morning, you have access to primary source materials.
Yes, yes.
And we probably field sometimes between 400 and 600 reference requests a year.
Wow. Okay.
But I mean, we've been in operation as a theater for over 60 years.
Yeah.
And there's 50 to 70 shows a year. So there's a lot of materials.
Wow. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay, great. Thank you for that. And then, I'm sorry, Louis, I apologize, Louis over at BAM. Sort of the same question, please.
Yeah. Well, actually, before I talk about BAM, I'm curious, do you have a database set up? Do you have software for your system?
No, not yet, actually. What's interesting is that is going to be a goal for us over this summer, which is starting to get software implemented. So if anybody has a suggestion on software that they enjoy, we would love to hear it.
Well, at BAM, I've been at BAM for over 15 years, and we use Collective Access, which is
okay.
open source, and it's free, but it's not free because you have to spend a lot of time setting it up, and if you don't have those skills, you have to hire somebody to do that.
Yeah. Okay, great.
But it is a good system, but it's complicated and it can be frustrating on a variety of levels.
And Louis, can I ask you a question? Is it frustrating for the individual that's setting it up, or is it frustrating for the person that's trying to use it for research purposes?
Well, we have
a little bit of both.
A front end and a back end. The front end was designed to have the BAM identity, so it's actually rather easy to use. The back end is kind of for a variety of reasons, but you know, it's a big discussion because our database is trying to do a lot of different things, so as I'm sure yours is as well.
Yeah.
I've also recently set up a database in WordPress. Not that I'm the programmer, but I hired a programmer and set up a database in WordPress, which is possible. And I'm sure with all these other archivists here, they have their favorite platforms as well.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Louis.
But
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to talk to you offline about how we dealt with, you know, what kind of schema we made.
Oh, yeah, I would greatly appreciate that. I would absolutely appreciate that. Thank you. And then Amanda, yeah, Amanda's saying social media is definitely a great, and it takes a lot of work, but it's worth it for the views you can accrue. I mean, I heard this, and I don't know if this is a correct statement or not, but I was hearing that within the next 10 years, many students and undergraduate students, before they go to Google to do their research, they're actually going to search whatever they're looking for on TikTok first to see if any sort of videos come up to give them the sort of the educational information that they need. I won't even talk about AI. I'll just talk about TikTok right now. I'm just curious, I know that the social media platform that a lot of students are using right now seems to be something like Instagram. Does anybody use anything like TikTok as part of their outreach? I'm just curious. As people are waiting to respond, let's see. Then Megan says the George Mason University Special Collections here. Oh, yes, wonderful. We have a number of performing arts collections, many for DC Regional Theater. Yes, I've explored your collection. It's marvelous. Great. Great. So I'm just curious, is anybody else using any sort of social media besides the, like, when I say basic, I just mean the things like Facebook and Instagram. Is anybody using any other sort of means beyond that? Is anybody using TikTok, or is anybody using Snapchat or anything like that in order to get a younger demographic into the archives? Let's see what it says over here. Sorry, thank you. Great. Okay, cool. So it seems like Instagram seems to be the way things are moving now for a bunch. I'm also curious, is anyone running into any sort of copyright issues, or any sort of individual or estate saying, hey, listen, you're more than welcome to have this in the collection, but we need to have approval over anybody who's looking at the material or requesting to look at the material. Is anybody running into that? And while I'm waiting to hear an answer on that, Amanda is saying we use Instagram Reels because we're not allowed to have TikTok. Seems like a happy middle ground. Fantastic. Good. Yes, Kylie.
Yeah, on the copyright stuff. So the way that we do it is we only share stuff for educational purposes. We don't share videos online, like in the catalog, but we note that we have them. And then like if a student or researcher wants to view them, they have to email us. I have a form that they have to fill out that says they understand this is copyrighted material. They can't duplicate it or download it or anything like that. And then we create a private password protected Vimeo link which we put up for like a limited period of time that they can remotely view, and then we take it down.
Great. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate that. I was also seeing in one of the things also I wanted to make sure that we had covered was, I think one of the questions that had come in earlier was what have we digitized, what have we collected at this point so far? We're very lucky. Like I mentioned before, there's a gentleman by the name of Ken Bloom. Ken is a wonderful historian. Ken has written some really marvelous books about the American musical theater. And he was able to get the collections of people like George Gershwin, of Ira Gershwin, of Richard Rodgers, Lorenz Hart. And a lot of these individuals in the from the 1920s all the way up until their passing in the mid-20th century were individuals who were doing a lot of radio interviews at the time, and a few of them actually were able to get the actual interviews themselves preserved. Now, what's interesting is nobody's heard these interviews since they were first broadcast, whether they be in the late 1920s, the 30s, and 40s. We have all of those. And so those are currently in the process of being digitized. Those will be up on the website. That's also very exciting for us because it's things that nobody's ever heard, like I said, since they were first broadcast many years ago. Like I was saying, the big issue that we keep running into is that for many individuals and for a long amount of time, musical theater was always looked at as something that's less than. that it wasn't as legitimate as, say, doing, a Shakespeare play or doing a play by Arthur Miller. And that's no knock on those, obviously, those two geniuses. But because musical theater's always had sort of this, wrongfully ascribed, silly optimism to it, people didn't really think it was something worth study. So what we're trying to do is trying to make sure that people can actually use primary sources of these individuals in their own voice with their own quotations without somebody second guessing or third guessing. A lot of biographies about a lot of these individuals and a lot of things that are on websites usually are, I don't want to say hearsay, but rumors and gossip. And I think they told this story once, and it's sort of getting passed down as truth, or the words coming from those individuals. It's our goal to make sure that a lot of this stuff is actually, like I said, digitized and preserved, so that way people can actually hear what these people were saying and what their thoughts were. On top of that, there was also a wonderful radio show in the 1980s that was not that interviewed a lot of people that were involved in the golden age of the American musical theater right before their passing, people that nobody really gave a lot of thought to, didn't really give the time of day to, because once they had hit a certain age and their productivity had lessened, people weren't really interested in talking to them or interviewing them. An individual in the 1980s actually did long form interviews with a lot of these individuals. And so a lot of that is also being digitized currently as we speak. This is stuff that was on reel-to-reels or audio cassettes. And once again, it will be giving people a chance to listen to somebody like Ethel Merman talk for 3 hours about their career, or listening to someone like Richard Rodgers or Oscar Hammerstein talk for 3 or 4 hours about their career. I'm sure, as you all know, a lot of interviews for people in the performing arts are usually dealt with a specific goal in mind, and that's usually to sell whatever product they're currently working on. So if they're doing a musical, the interview is really going to be about that musical and how to get tickets to that musical, et cetera, et cetera. This individual went and recorded interviews with these people just to talk about the length and longevity of their careers. Only has been heard in its raw format by the interviewer, and only heard in its edited format by the listener who was lucky enough to hear it 40 or 50 years ago. So all of that stuff is also being turned out as well. We just inherited a really wonderful collection from one of Broadway's top stage managers. This individual had worked on over 40 Broadway shows, starting all the way back with The Sound of Music originally in 1960. And they kept copious notes on the scripts, the scores, the design presentations, everything that they ever had that was related to the show. Unfortunately, this individual just passed away about a month or so ago, but they left us their entire collection. So we're currently in the process of digitizing all of those scripts, scores, handwritten notes by the composers, people like Stephen Sondheim, people like Arthur Miller, and that's going to then be digitized and made available for people that are interested in doing stage management. So we also have that as well. Brett says, yes, Brett, over at Rutgers. Hello, Brett. Yes, so glad to know that Ken Bloom is still around and looking to do something with his collection. Yes, Ken is the actual best of this. Emma's asking a great question, which is, are you taking physical custody of these materials? We are, unless the individual asks for it back, but more often than not, they're looking to, clear up space in their home. What's the organization's capacity or staffing like for things like cataloging and preservation? That's a great question. In terms of capacity, we do have a storage unit that we're sort of putting all of the physical copies of things in once they're digitized. And currently the staffing right now is myself and a young gentleman who also is helping me out with this, who's doing it for college internship credit. And our hope is, obviously, as time goes on, that will expand, but that's currently who we have right now. Thanks, Emma. That's a great question. And yes, and Brett, your stuff over at Rutgers is fantastic. Really, really wonderful. Any other questions about anything as I'm babbling on about musical theater? I see Megan's mic just turned off. Yes, Megan.
Robert, I have a question. So you'd mentioned at the beginning that you were also trying to help researchers or students find institutions or archives that have papers. How are you connecting with those, or connecting the students with those places, or finding those breadcrumbs if you need to?
What a great question. So the goal right now is, for example, let's say that somebody wants to look at the papers of, say, somebody like Cole Porter. What we will do is in its current form, a student will contact us. we will contact the Cole Porter Estate and Trust, where his papers are currently being kept, which I believe is Indiana University. And then what we do is we make the connection for the two of them. Our goal is that we will have a page on the website where you go, Cole Porter, and it comes up saying, oh yes, the archives are collect here. You want to speak to Joe Smith? This is Joe's email address. That's kind of the goal of what we're hoping to do when eventually the website is up and running. Yeah. And so our goal really is to have a website that's one-stop shop without a lot of middle persons getting in the way of things. So that way a person can just go directly, see who they have to contact, and go from there. It's sort of the same thing for people that are looking, if for example, if somebody is looking for something that's more of a legal question, like for example, if somebody wants to rewrite Sound of Music, I don't know why, it's perfect, but if you wanted to rewrite it, like who are the attorneys and the estate representatives of the Rodgers and Hammerstein organization? So that's also what we're looking to do with this as well. That's a great question, Megan. Anybody else? Anybody else? And like I said, you've all taught me so much today, and all of your archives that I've been able to look at are just so marvelous and so well organized. As a researcher myself, I cannot tell you how wonderful it is that there's a group like this that's really dedicated to making sure that that students and researchers have easy access to things. And I'm sure you know this, but with a younger generation, not to sound like an old man, their patience level to search for something and get results for it, if it doesn't happen immediately, they just sort of veer off. So the fact that we're all trying to create websites and repositories that are easy for people to access, I cannot tell you how wonderful it is. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else? As I'm looking, and I'm so sorry. I wish I had a website to show you right now, but it's currently under construction. And like I said, this is something that's relatively new for us. And I just feel like I just saw a mic go off somewhere. Hi, Becky. Becky from the Yale Music Library here. We have the majority of the Cole Porter collection here. Yes, you do. I'm curious if you're working on transcriptions at all. Yes, we are, for the oral interviews or radio programs. Yes, we are working on transcriptions. We get quite a few requests for them, especially for our oral history of the American music collection, and it's an ongoing process to get those digitized. Love the musical theater work. It sounds very exciting. Thank you, Becky. I appreciate that. And yes, we are going to have everything transcribed. That's really, really important for us. I see Headquarters has clicked off on their mic. Yes, go ahead, Headquarters.
Hello. Yes. What about scores? Are you going to collect scores?
Same thing. Yes, we are collecting those as well. We are very lucky. There's a wonderful gentleman by the name of Michael Levine. Michael has the world's largest private collection of musical theater sheet music. And Michael is scanning everything on his own and then sending it to us, and that will be uploaded as well. What's cool about that is it's not just, songs that we're used to in a musical, it's songs that were cut from musicals, songs that were just first drafts that never got in. So all of that will be available as well. So yes, we are also scanning scores and posting those as well for people to research. Great question. Thank you. We also have a lot of cool audio as well. So, for example, somebody like Stephen Sondheim, who did wonderful musicals like Company and Follies and Sweeney Todd and Into the Woods. A lot of his stuff that was recorded on demos, he would make a scratch recording of himself playing. We now have access to all of those. So all of those will be available as well for listening as well. So people can also hear how a process evolved, how a song had evolved, and the evolution of the artistic process. So great question. Thanks, Headquarters. I love that. And also, like I said, if there's anything in anybody's collection that's on here that's willing to share or willing to have, yourself be a resource for a link on our website, we would absolutely love that. And like I said, it's a nonprofit. Nobody's making money off of it. We just want to make sure that everything gets recorded and that history is reflected accurately as students and scholars begin to codify a lot of this great history. So that's our main goal. And I'm sure, as you all know, it's not really a money-making venture. It's a chance to just preserve a wonderful history. Yeah. Anything else from anybody? I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. Marcella or Marcella, I hope I didn't pronounce it incorrectly. What are your long-term plans for the physical items post-digitization that you've collected? You mentioned placing those items in a storage unit, but will you also be providing access to the physical items or partnering with an archives to provide that access? The answer is yes. So our goal is once things are digitized, if people do want to look at the physical copy, we're hoping to have a brick and mortar location within New York City that people can come to where all of these items will be stored. So that way they can be able to look at it. That's probably part of our 5 or 10-year plan in the grand scheme of things. But yes, they would be available. We would not be, we're not going to throw anything away or anything like that. Obviously, if there's an archive that says we would be interested in taking on, being a physical home for any of these items, we would be more than happy to talk and be more than happy to see if we can get something going. But yes, the goal is eventually to have like a brick and mortar location where people could come and actually look at these objects firsthand, because I think that's just as important as the digitization as well. The digitization for us is a safety blanket in making sure accessibility is available to all, but nothing can replace the joy, I think, of having the physical copy in your hands, looking at it. Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking that. Anything else from anybody? As I look through. Well, let's see. So, as I had mentioned, or if you need, please, my website is www.robwschneider.com. I am based in New York City, so if anybody ever wants to get coffee or lunch on me, please hit me up because I would love to pick all your brains. Like I said, I'm coming at this from such a different lens than most of you, which is I'm lucky enough to work in the theater, but I have a big passion about making sure these items get preserved and future generations can examine them. Which is what you all make your life's mission. So I'm sort of dipping my toe into your world a little bit. So if you're willing to help me, I would love to help you in any way that I possibly can as well. But I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you inviting me and taking time to talk about this, which I'm very passionate about. And I thank you all for your kindness and your great suggestions and things like that. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. When do you project having the first iteration of your website with actual materials on it?
Great question. September 1st. September 1st will be our launch date.
Great.
Yeah, and then obviously I'll send it all to you. And please, once I send it, if anyone is willing to go, wow, this is really confusing, or oh boy, it would be better if you did A as opposed to B. Please, like I said, our goal is to make sure that these students have the information that they need. So we'll take any notes and any suggestions. Great. Oh, and thank you, Kylie. Thank you, Megan. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. That's not my phone, so I'm going to let it ring. I apologize. But thank you all so much for everything. I really appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. We're really fascinated to see how this project takes off and takes shape.
Same. Thank you all so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Oh, great. Enjoy your day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.